Here is made, not me, what the treasurer has done is made all of the staffing adjustments. That includes the replacements for the individuals that have retired, the individuals that have moved into clerical positions. All of that has been accounted for. The new hires, we know exactly what their steps are, so they've been accounted for. And as a result, we were able to move the last lease that was outside of the operating budget into the operating budget, so we have nothing to move into the operating budget for next year. We finished that process a year in advance of what we expected, so that's pretty excellent news. The final lease was $57,057. That was the one for the junior high school iPads. So now all of the technology leases are part of the regular operational budget, and they're on a cycle of replacement. So we never will run into the problem of aging technology and us trying to find a funding source to replace. It's just part of our process. The leases are for the exact number of years that we anticipate the life of the technology, and they just get replaced as part of the standard process. Okay. On the other side, this is kind of a follow-up to the conversation we had at our legislative forum that we hosted. So I did prepare this just as a summary. It's short. The two-sided document. If you look at the chart on the back, check the chart on the back first. I have one.
Thank you.
So the back side is a summary of the different revenue categories. So the funding formula, we had budgeted for a reduction of $242,468 because as part of the funding formula, our district is one of the districts in the state that is in decreasing funding on an annual basis. And then the second column shows what was enacted. The budget, the governor's budget was finally passed very, very late. And what was enacted compared to what was budgeted is there. The biggest discrepancy is in regional transportation. We spoke with Ryan a number of times, and Bob spoke with Ryan a number of times. We stopped the numbers from him during the budget preparation period. We budgeted $729,000. What was enacted was $514,000. And then we had the conversation about non-public transportation offset. That was one of the big items that we talked about at our legislative forum. We had budgeted $138,709. What they enacted was $12,444. Well, when I first looked at this, I did a little bit of research and identified an issue. You can see on the back side that this is a response that I got from the Department of Ed. Because I had identified an issue that I had them research. And the response from the finance office is here, and they identified that a mistake was made at RIDE. And they made a correction of just about $96,000 to the non-public transportation offset. So that's what the correction column is. That's the correction. And then the only difference in the last column is I added the enacted plus the correction for a total of $108,000. So we anticipated about a $30,000 increase from the previous year, and what we got was a $2,000 decrease. It's better than the $12,000 that we initially enacted. But basically, the difference is, despite all the good news that we've had with moving leases into the operational budget, we are starting the year with a difference of about $250 million under what was budgeted for revenue based on the enacted budget. Because every single line, with the exception of group home aid, was decreased. And group home aid line was, as you can see, not increased. And even the funding formula, which is a formula. So you would expect that if they said we're going to go down to 242,000 and we go down to 42, we're down to 55. So it's not looking too promising. I mean, I think the good news for next year is that we're going to be in office for a full year. We're going to have to wait an extra 2 months before the final budget is passed. Because of the numbers that we get when we're going through our budgeting process to be more accurate. They've been pretty on target the last few years, but this year, nothing for sure.
Is anything happening in the legislature, or is that waiting until session starts?
The letter that we sent out, no response. So, I think we
Just build all the issues and all the financial impacts. The
Right.
group home, so our group home expense quite substantial. Do they calculate it based on exactly what we're spending on group home?
Yeah. So group home aid is calculated based on beds, which is dangerous for us because we just lost the group home. The group home that we lost is the group home with the lower needy children. The group home that we retain is the group home where every child goes to an out-of-district placement. It's $750,000 for us. We're still going to get reimbursement on the number of beds. So I expect our reimbursement for group home to go down, cut in half, because the number of beds have been cut in half when we're closing the group home. Again, you understand the issues, but if they chose to close the group home that remained open, even though there would be a reduction based on the number of beds, it would be a massive influx of funds to our district.
Most of it were district.
District. So, anyway, that's the reality that we face at this point. So that's.
I
think last year we had the issue of unexpected tuitions that came in and we closed the gap. Part of how we closed the gap was with some of the nutrition savings, which now have fallen up to this point and accounted. So we'll just continue to see what happens. But I wanted to provide that update for you. So we're using not good news.
We all set it up. Okay. Somebody want to
Yes. Our new history teacher at the high school, Mary Milner. Mary joins us from Davies, right? She taught a year at Davies,
And the committee at the high school,
Noah was on the committee, as well as some of our high school teachers.
Who just so happened to get a perfect score on his AP history test. We just found out.
so we're happy to have you. You've already been appointed.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Everyone except the kindergarten teacher, that's how it
Okay, new business. Policy 7600, participation in the assessment. This is the first reading, so we won't be voting tonight. It's the first reading, so we'll have to talk about it, discussion.
I have agendas that Robin left for me, but in case you want one. So this is a policy that I'm sure will generate some discussion. We talked about it at the policy subcommittee level, and I know that similar kinds of policies have been up for discussion in other districts across the state. Many of the districts have already adopted policies. I have some examples with you. But I want to just kind of spell out what we're talking about because I know that conversation is going to lead us into what I think is a different conversation. This is about student participation in state assessments. And the issue that we face is different than the issue that we face in the upcoming. The issue that we faced last school year is different than the issue that we will face next school year. In the last school year, we had a number of parents who opted their children out of state assessments at all of our schools, in particular the high school. But the junior high and Metcalf, we were below 95% participation. At the high school, we were about 50% participation in the second semester. In the first semester, we were at 99% participation. So the same students participated first semester, and then 50% opted out in the second semester. Last school year, RIDE indicated that there would be no consequence towards districts in terms of their classification as a result of students opting out. So even though we are below the 95% participation rate at every one of our tested schools, that will have no impact on our overall classification in the previous school year, 14 school year. That was a one-year waiver. And next year, when our classifications are calculated, the 95% rule is back in place. And so if we have schools where the participation rate drops below 95%, then we cannot be considered a middle school, we cannot be considered a leading school, and we have multiple years in a row that our high school has been commended, our middle school is leading, and Metcalf is on the verge of being a leading school. They've shown annual progress, or substantial progress, and I anticipate that we should have all of our schools in the leading category. None of them will be eligible if the participation rate falls below 25%. So this policy is not a statement about Common Core, and is not a statement about standardized testing. This policy is about protecting the district from unintended negative consequences as a result of decisions that might be made at the school level. What I've done here is outline the context. I mean, I can certainly read it. We don't have copies of it, but I think that we have a number of people who know this. Context is up to you. And then I can summarize what the policy proclamation and responsibility section are. So the context says the Exeter West Greenwich School Committee is charged with the entire care, control, and management of all public school interests of the respective towns and maintains by statute RHEL 16-2-9 the following powers and duties: to identify educational needs in the community, to develop educational policies to meet the needs of the community, and to provide for and assure the implementation of federal and state laws, the regulations of the Board of Regents for elementary and secondary education, and of local school policies, programs, and directives. The Rhode Island Board of Education establishes basic education program regulations pursuant to its delegated statutory authority to determine standards for the Rhode Island public education system and the maintenance of local appropriation to support its implementation. Further, the BEP establishes the requirement that the local education agency, that's the Exeter West Greenwich Regional School District, must, quote, ensure that its students are provided with a comprehensive program of study that is guaranteed viable in each content area from pre-K through grade 12, so that its students are prepared for post-secondary education or productive employment. Each curriculum shall be developed to meet or exceed state content standards that have been adopted by the Board of Regents, unquote. Additionally, the local education agency, quote, shall ensure that its schools are compliant with the BEP as well as all other requirements related to student achievement as measured by state and local assessments. RHEL 16-22-9 states that the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education shall establish a program for the uniform achievement testing of pupils in elementary and secondary schools of the state. Pupils attending public schools shall be administered tests under the supervision of the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in accordance with the program. In addition, the BEP BEP outlines the functions of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to include ensuring quality assurance and quality control of the district's efforts through an effective system of indicators, data collection, analysis, and public reporting. That's the classification system that we use to determine if we're recommended to be atypical or below. The BEP further states, quote, in carrying out its leadership role, BART has a responsibility to exercise its authority under the state and federal law to intervene in LEAs in schools that are not closing student achievement gaps, are not continuously improving, or are not reaching state performance standards. Beginning with the 2015-16 school year, the Morale and Accountability System will be used to classify schools as commended, leading, in good standing, with or without alerts, focus, or priority. The metrics used to determine said classifications include all of the following: proficiency rates in English language arts and math as measured by approved state testing results, gap closing in ELA and math among subgroups as measured by approved state testing results, performance growth in ELA and math as measured by approved state testing results at elementary and middle schools only, and high school graduation rates. While we also continue to calculate state testing participation rates for each school, schools not reaching the 95% participation rate will have an alert and not be eligible for commended or lead status. Students who do not test for any reason other than a state-approved medical waiver will count against participation rates. Finally, RFGL 16530 grants the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education the statutory right to quote order the General Treasury to withhold payment of any portion of the public money that has been or may be apportioned to the city or town for violation or neglect of law, or for violation or neglect of rules and regulations in pursuance of law by any city or town officer or school committee. Policy proclamation states that the school committee acknowledges Common Core state standards or successor standards, as these may change from time to time, as the current approved standards of the Board of Education, the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or a successor assessment system, as this may change from time to time, as the current approved state assessment system. Further, the school committee will not condone activities that violate federal law, state law, or the regulations of the Board of Education, thereby jeopardizing the good standing of the Exeter West Greenwich Regional School District, whether it is financial or performance related. Therefore, the school committee directs the superintendent to develop and implement a curriculum that is aligned to the approved standards of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Furthermore, the school committee directs the superintendent to adhere to the state-approved assessment system for all students except those exempted by a state-approved medical waiver. The Exeter West Greenwich Regional School District shall offer no provision for opting out of these requirements. And then the policy talks about responsibilities of the district, the administration, the teachers and staff, parents and students. And again, this is not a statement about our stance on targeting Common Core. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of information out there that we quite honestly agree with. But the bottom line is that if we've been asked, it's happened, for the district to take a stand and not implement Common Core. We do not have the right to do that. It's a requirement. We've been asked to take a stand and not administer the state test. We cannot do that. It would be a violation. We must administer the test. We must administer curriculum that is aligned to the Common Core. So those are the facts. The issue that we have is if we allow the opt-outs to continue in the manner in which they occurred last year, we are jeopardizing the school's classification.
How are we going to get the word out about that, Joel? Because I think that's key for people to understand why, the ramifications of kids aren't taking the test.
So in the responsibility section, there are a couple of bullets about communication.
Right.
Communicating accurate and unbiased information with parents and community members regarding the approved curriculum and assessment requirements, including those outlined in this policy. So Maria and I, when we were at dinner before this meeting, I told her that one of the things that I will be doing is creating a video, just me talking about this issue and publishing it and then sending it out to everybody. Because I think that it's too easy that we're walking the fine line. This is a conversation about the school department following what we're required to do by regulation. This is not a conversation about Common Core. It's not a conversation about high-stakes testing. That conversation is the one that is far more controversial, I think, because there are people that have different opinions about that, and that's fine. We can have that conversation, but there are limits to what the school department can do. We do not make the regulations about which curriculum we have to follow. We do not make the regulations about which tests we have to administer. Whether we have 99% of our students opt out of the test or not, we still have to administer the test to that extra 1%. We have to create a testing schedule for the kids that don't opt out. In fact, with all the opt-outs that we had last year, it actually created a bigger problem for us because we were running two concurrent schedules, one for the kids that were testing and one for the kids that weren't testing. We needed double the amount of supervision. It was really problematic. But that's secondary to this conversation. So anyway, I will create the video. It's going to go out, and then it's got to be a regular piece of communication from principals at the house meetings, the blogs, the website, newspaper. It's going to be a media blitz because there's way too much information out there that is, I think, confusing to people. And we're blurring the lines of communication between two separate issues. The issue of your philosophical opinion of testing, your philosophical opinion of Common Core, and then the issue of the school department following regulations which we must follow, or there are consequences that are outlined in this policy.
Now, this is a near and dear issue to my heart, but when you say that the high standards, the high stakes testing is not part of the issue, it is the entire issue. I refuse to park for my own two children, already know, for a multitude of reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now. But I think that the reason why I think a lot of people are misinformed, the reason why parents that really did the research, like myself, and refuse to test for their kids, because I think that the other thing we forget about is that our most important job is the educational welfare of the kids. And I know I understand the position you're in completely. I'm not going to be in your spot, but this is the reason why people are it's across the country. It's an unprecedented issue that's happening. It's a political issue. I think we're trying to say enough with the testing, and let's get back to teaching and learning. And there's no other way, because you just said it yourself. We can't do anything. We have to follow what they tell us to do. So how else can we change it unless parents speak
I have
up?
a little bit of an answer to that.
Okay.
One of the things, so we know what the issues are, and we don't necessarily disagree with the issues. You and I have had some pretty open conversations about it. Let's just take the issue that you raised, the issue about the amount of testing that our kids are exposed to.
I've heard so many people at the state level so many people say, but it hasn't changed. Minimally.
I'm going to, maybe not yet, but I can tell you what's on the horizon. Okay. So one of the things that happened recently is we've adopted the district strategic plan. One of the focus areas is on curriculum and assessment, and one of the priorities that is identified is the whole issue of testing. It's not just the state assessment system, but it's all of the internal assessments that we use. And I'll say it's iReady, it's the reading street assessments, it's the state assessments, it's everything. We've identified it as one of our priorities to look at and shrink the testing requirements in the district. We cannot make decisions about shrinking state assessments, although they have.
They're working on it.
They have, the test will only be administered at one sit-in this time as opposed to two. For next year, they've made that adjustment. And in addition to that, the number of sessions of ELA has been reduced and the number of sessions of math has been reduced. It would be nice to see them get reduced a little bit more and get the sessions shortened a little bit, but it's significant what they've done already. So those were some of our biggest pieces of feedback that we provided, and they have made some adjustments, and we have been writing that those adjustments have been made. We've already made some decisions, and we have a large Metcalf audience, but the reading street assessments that happen on a weekly basis are a eliminated from the required set of assessments. So what Marie is doing with the teachers within our district over the things that we can control is to look at our full assessment system, which includes internal and external assessments, and what can we do to eliminate where there's overlap, and really have some conversations about what the data is being used for. And if we have multiple sources of data that are telling us the same thing, or if we have data just for the sake of having it because we've always done it, but it's not really informing our instruction, then we're making decisions to eliminate it. So we've already made some significant strides that will be in effect for next school year. It's a focus area of our strategic plan, and we continue to be vocal at the state level around some of the issues with the testing itself, the state testing. Again, we can't control the changes, but we can influence changes at that level. And the other big thing that we specifically outlined in the district strategic plan is the testing schedule. And when I say that, I mean specific to the state assessment. I think one of the issues that we experienced this past year, was when we scheduled the state assessments, it was very intrusive to everybody else in the building, specifically, or in particular, at the junior and senior high school, more so at the high school than anyplace else. And so you had classes where many of the kids were pulled because they were in testing, and then the remaining students in the class were back with the teacher. Sometimes the teacher had to be pulled to go supervise the kids that opted out, so they had no teacher in the room, a sub who, basically just let them study or whatever. It was intrusive, so there was lost instructional time for everybody as a result of that schedule. We've started to brainstorm some ideas, knowing now what the testing windows look like. We are going to have the schedule mapped out well in advance, and we have a year under our belt, so we know what they told us at the time was way more than what was actually necessary. So we can shrink some of the windows that will help us to really develop a schedule that will not be intrusive to the rest of the building. And one of the things that we heard, and again we agree with, but we heard that there were students who took the test who missed instruction in some of their classes because the classes were mixed, and that can't happen because all that does is send the message that the testing is getting in the way of the students learning. So we have to address that issue. We have some plans to do that as well. There are things that we can do internally to correct other things that are under our control, but the state assessment is not completely under our control. Although I do feel confident that our voice is being heard.
The legislators say that we are being heard, but there's the commended status. I mean, I can't believe how little criteria is used for that, and I don't understand. I mean, I know you're on the committee, but it's based on reading math and graduation, and just
those criteria are. We didn't just come up with those ourselves.
No, it's really a weak criteria for status in a school, as far as I'm concerned. You have this program.
And the committee agrees with you. The committee agrees with you. The committee that I was on at the state level agrees with you. The things that are identified here are the things that are currently in place, although I have a full packet, a full presentation on what the new accountability system looks like. And all of the things related to the state testing around math and PLA are federally required. So the state must submit its accountability system for federal approval by the United States Department of Education, and they just approved the RIDE model for accountability. All of the things that are listed there are required components. What our committee suggested was adding some additional components, and there's agreement that they're going to be phased in. So I actually have some information that will, in other words, it will reduce the percentage of the overall calculated score based on some of these metrics, because we're going to introduce some new metrics to the equation that are much more under our control.
And will that happen this next school year?
They're looking at phasing them in after this school year, so it's a little at a time.
So this past part year, the first year, will count towards that. You involve the refusals and...
It will count. We will get a classification based on all of those things. The only thing that was waived for last year only was the 95% participation rate. So that the participation rate is not used as a certain percentage of the overall raw score that you get that determines what classification that you're in. But the 95% is like it's an umbrella. If you don't meet it, regardless of what your scores are and everything else, you can't not be in the top 2 categories.
So where, I mean, I've asked this question several times and no one can give me a straight answer. Where is that 95% coming from? Why 95? I mean, you don't need 95% to assess where your students are. You really don't.
I've been told that it's federal, but I've never seen it.
But what is the purpose of
How big is
it?
that?
I believe that Secondary Education Act, that 95%.
Right, but that doesn't explain why that high number. I mean, if I have my ideas, but.
So that's where we are. I mean,
I think, getting back to the communication piece, I think that's the piece that's really lacking because I think if the parents understand the real value of it, whether they agree or not, we don't want to see us not implemented. So therefore, we're going to encourage our kids. But I think that's the key, as opposed to you have to do this or threatening people if they don't do it. It's more education.
and this policy is not about a threat, because one of the things that we talked about was if you read the responsibility section, which I really wanted to include here, it's not about identifying punishments. It's about communicating all of these things with everybody, because there's so much confusion out there. I mean, we could have done it better last year, but the reality is when we first tested, it was the senior high school, because we're on a semester schedule, and it just wasn't a conversation that was happening. So we made a decision that we weren't going to open up this massive conversation, because sometimes when you do that, it creates more of a problem than it solves. It wasn't a problem to address at the time. And then it just really happened very, very quickly. And by the end of the year, it was almost impossible to manage. And we realized at that point, we realized a little earlier than that, but we realized that we had a lot of work to do. But given the fact that there were no consequences of the way it was in place for last year, we wanted to just assess how things went in year one and then sit back and really think about what our approach was going to be. We know that the key here is communication. And it's communication with everybody. It's our communication with everybody, and then it's the principal's communication, it's the teacher's communication with the students, with the parents. We have to be on the same page. Because no teacher, no principal, no central office administrator, and I believe no parent wants to put the district in any kind of jeopardy. We're too good of a district to do that.
Do we know how close or similar we are to the York system? Same as the Michigan customer, or is that might give us an idea of what his sensitivities are. Because he says a listener, so we'll see. But
He's a pro
Reform.
protesting.
I just came from the state with over 200,000 refusals, and they just got out of the Pearson contract, getting out of the Pearson contract and going to a different testing company out of Minnesota, so they're out of that.
so there's an opportunity there for
I hope. But I don't know.
I mean, I think we're always going to have state testing, whether it's proper or something else is fine. This policy would allow for whatever. I mean, this is really just putting in writing what our responsibilities are and the consequences that face the district if we don't follow them. So we must implement PARC, we must administer whatever test they decide, and we must align our curriculum to whatever the
I think that people misunderstand that parents are not against standards and they're not against testing. It's this particular test. And we would really like to see it go away and have a better assessment that is more valid, more reliable, has been piloted and researched. None of that's been done. So,
well, I hope that the conversation continues to happen, and I think it will. It's happening. We haven't had a chance yet to meet the new commissioner as our body of When we do, I guarantee it will be a topic of conversation. When we meet with parents, I guarantee it will be a topic of conversation. It's something that has really been on everybody's mind throughout the course of particularly the last part of this past school year. So if changes are made that change the consequences at the local level, then we have more conversations. But this isn't really about where we stand right now. And as things change, having a conversation then. That's where we are. And you know what the sad thing is? I think there's a lot of people that believe that it's us against them. It's not that way. We actually
last year with Brian and field memos, all the different communications. It didn't make sense one week to the next.
And we all want the same thing. We want the best learning opportunities for the kids. We do want that. We have to balance our responsibilities with what we're required to do. Our responsibilities as kids and what we're required to do from providing regulation. And I think in this district, we do a good job of that. If the testing were, I've said this a million times, I think when Common Core was introduced, the ideal way to do it was to start in kindergarten, and then the next year was kindergarten in grade 1, because no gaps. Start when the standards start in grade K, you introduce in grade K, when those kids move to grade 1, kindergartners get it, grade 1 students get it, and then when you get to the testing year, they have a full instruction across all of the standards that are identified in Common Core. Common Core is a set of expectations. It's not the curriculum. But it was
materials.
K-12 and go for it. So we're in a transition right now that is a real struggle, and we all recognize that. But it is what it is. And we agree that what happened and what the ideal don't match. But we have to address what we were handed.
As you all know, I'm not going to recognize the audience yet. We're going to have the school committee discuss it first. That's fine.
I just think that the policy addresses potential consequences for lack of participation, including potential for loss of funding. And I think that's something that we're all keenly aware of. I'm sure staff is as well. And certainly, to Val's point, that needs to be communicated to parents, because parent-student participation is critical. But to everyone, because I think there's a lot of talk about Common Core, or informed and uninformed, and just community discussions. But it has potential for financial consequences for the entire district. So in communication that we do, I hope that we can target not just parents of students in the school district, but taxpayers in both of our communities.
And just to clarify, so if a parent refuses to allow their child to take the test, if we have a 50% opt-out, that is not a financial implication for the district. It's a classification implication for the district. And so that's a clarification. However, what we've been asked to do is to just abandon Common Core and not administer the test. That would be a blatant refusal on the part of the district to not follow a regulation. That would come with a financial consequence, so that there is a little bit of a discrepancy there. But certainly, it's information that everybody needs to know.
Right, that citation of around general 6530 on the second page of the policy commits the Commissioner Ed to hold payment at any point per month.
That's if you don't administer.
Right.
We administer.
Right.
Nothing to do with the kids not taking it.
It's all they'll come out of.
Right. I don't think they use the parents.
I think the whole district.
The district part.
No, my point, what I was just saying, the superintendent and chair, is just like, the feds have been unusually clear on this particular issue in this area. There's a number of correspondence I'm looking at on February 3rd, 2015, the U.S. Department that Commissioner Ed in Alaska, there's one New Jersey, and I believe Texas may be the other. There's at least more of them out there, and they make it abundantly clear that their interpretation of the statute is no opt-out. And if you are in violation, depending on the level of violation, which is what I think we're talking about, it's not just categorization of your schools instead of funding. And they make it abundantly clear, like I said, more clear than they typically do.
For part class, for the 95% of class, there's
95% of us is classification. I'm talking about the implementation of following the testing. Okay, I mean, it does not permit any percentage of students to be excluded from assessments. And clearly, if they fail to follow the assessment requirements, they can place these Title I Part A funds in jeopardy. When they go on to talk about your school improvement grant funds in jeopardy, your ESEA Title III funds in jeopardy, IPA funds in jeopardy, private education ESEA funds in jeopardy.
It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened, but bear in mind that I'm giving you this perspective from a lawyer, not a parent or anyone else. To me, this is a very black and white issue as far as what you need to do to protect.
And it's already been tested.
Funding. I mean, like I said, the U.S. Department is typically not this clear on how they feel about something.
So how about the ESEA reauthorization that just went through the Senate? It had like 2 out of 3 parental opt-out amendments actually passed. Not that the president would veto it, but there were some amendments in there. What do you make of those?
I mean, again, I think you were very accurate when you said it's a movement. There's a lot of discussion on it. My interpretation of the law as it stands is this is the kind of policy you need to have, and you need to strictly follow it. I don't need to, I don't want to say it's like the speed limit. I don't need to compare the two, 55, 65. You know, many believe that 65 is the one, but if the law says 55, that's what it is. Right now, I think the law is clear. I don't have to agree with it, but it's clear, and the feds have told us how they feel it needs to be applied. And my feeling as attorney for the school committee is anything short of following that mandate, you're exposing yourself to the potential of jeopardizing not only categorizations but funding. That's significant funding.
And we have to follow legislation all the time. I mean, we have a former school committee chair, the lady who's on all the time, he follows all the legislation for us. And we do a really good job of updating our policies based on legislative changes. If there's anything that changes that affects what we've written in this policy or any other policy, we will bring those changes back to the committee. We have to write policy based on what we're right now. And I was hoping that we could have this discussion in advance of the new school year. We only have one meeting in July, one meeting in August, so that when the school year starts, we can start with a very clear message from day one to everybody that's involved. Just communicate, in a positive way. I mean, we have a lot to be really thankful for in this district, and I don't want to see this kind of get in the way of all the things that are going on for us.
I just want to say we're fortunate enough to have a superintendent who's heavily involved in all of this and assisting with making positive changes at the higher level. And I'm going to make a statement because I feel strongly about it. I am disappointed in the families, some of the families in this district with the opt-out movement that we had. I know that there wasn't a lot of education, so some didn't know what they were doing, but some did. I feel like there's a tougher battle to fight at RIDE and with the governor's office. That's where the battle should be fought. And it's a tougher battle. This is the easy battle. And this isn't the battle that's going to change all this. What is going to change all this is having a superintendent who's involved and sees what's going on now that's unfolding in his own district and getting the positive changes, getting information up to RIDE and the governor's office and getting the positive changes out of it. And he's made a huge impact. And he knows here what needs to be done. So to me, the battle should be fought with the Department of Education and the governor's office. You're ruining your local school district. That bothers me. It bothers me. I'm going to make my statement because I apologize for talking, but we both know where we stand on this. This isn't the place to fight the battle. This isn't who they're listening to. I went to meetings with chairs of school committees, and there were so many districts like, oh my God, we had something, but they're listening to us. That's who's making the changes, positive changes for our districts. The superintendent. They're not looking at, Exeter, West Greenwich had less than 95% participation. They're punishing us. They're punishing us. So, someone is speaking from the heart up here who has dedicated 11 years of her life to this district. And I'm emotional about it. I can't help it. When I saw those big signs, I cried. My blood pressure went through the roof and I cried. Because I dedicated so much to ensuring that the kids in this district had the best education possible they could have, plus all the opportunities that we could give them. We went to Proud Performing Arts Center to see shows. We brought in science programs. We were the ones who brought in the Elmos at Metcalf School, the first high technology. 100% dedication to school for 11 years. Okay, this is not the place to fight the battle. We now have no data for this year to drive curriculum. We don't have any. Because even half the kids who took the test didn't take it seriously. Because their fellow classmates were standing up saying, my mom said I didn't have to take the test. Why do you? We don't have data to drive curriculum this year. In the past, the state testing has helped with our writing curriculum and our science curriculum heavily. We scored very low in those areas. And it was the kneecap scores and the state testing before that showed us what we need to do in our district. Our kindergartners, our first graders, second graders, their writing is amazing. Their group discussion is amazing. What drove all that? What drove us to hire a curriculum director? Knowing that we had all these gaps and that we had to improve our curriculum. We fought hard to get a curriculum director. And when Jim came along, he saw that and he saw what we used to do, and we have a fabulous curriculum director. I can go on and on. This is not the place to fight the battle. Take the hard road. The hard battle is to get your parents together. I respect everybody's opinions. Everybody has voted opinions on it. I totally respect them. But you need to get the parents and go fight the battle at Rye in the governor's office. Not here. Because our kids are suffering. And again, I go on and on and on. So I feel like I need to say that.
Well, I guess
my commitments.
why do the state legislators tell us that they're listening, they're doing the right thing? I mean, I've been to many hearings about this. I've been to many lectures on both sides, proponents and opponents, and I've informed my decision by going to many, many, many lectures. I've spent a lot of my free time on this. And so I feel that it's not what's best for our kids, and you have your opinion, that's fine. But standardized tests are not a good indicator of college performance. They're fine to drive. Teachers can figure out how to drive instruction through their assessments.
And I'm not arguing on that point, because I respect your opinion, and I don't know that Common Core and Park and all, this is the answer.
But if you look into it, you
Well,
might
what I
understand.
am making a statement on is this district is not the place to fight the battle. You need to get your parents, and you need to go find it higher. Not here. Because this district has been moving forward for years. We are working above and beyond everybody else in the state, I believe that. And our kids are benefiting from that. And to me, it's heart-wrenching to know this coming year, we don't know where our problems are with Common Core. We have to follow Common Core. So you know what? All the kids that didn't take Common Core and the kids who take it seriously, we don't even know where our weaknesses are with the Common Core curriculum. This is the first testing we would have had on it. So we don't have any of that data. We don't. So, but the battle is to be fought higher up, not here. Okay, I'm going to acknowledge some audience members, but I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes because I don't want to be here. We don't want to be to 11 o'clock, and I don't want people to go on. 2 minutes of focused comment. We will be voting at the next meeting. We will be voting at the August meeting. Today was to get some information out there, so it's on all of our radar. And parents can certainly feel free to call school committee member and share your view on things before we vote next meeting. But I don't have a timer, so we'll just go by whatever I feel like is 2 minutes. Please don't go off on tangents. I want focused comments. No.
Take my word with a grain of salt because I can't vote. I don't think we should spite our face just to send a message. I don't think we should sacrifice classification just because testing is good. That's a philosophical argument. Totally agree with what you said. This is the background. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Noah. Allison, you had raised your hand before, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, it's hard for me to gather my thoughts because so many things are running through. I'm a taxpayer and a parent, but a parent first. And you're really all here to listen to me and take seriously what I have to say. My son Jesse will never be taking any park assessments here. He can take spelling tests and simple math tests, science tests. He's never going to take a park assessment because it's owned by Pearson's, the company that we keep sending billions of dollars to so we can buy more testing equipment. I can go on and on, but I just have to show you a online test given to a 3rd or 4th grader. I have a teacher friend at Steer Farm Elementary in Burrville, and I have another teacher friend at Hopkins Hill School in Coventry. The teachers are not in West Greenwich. My Burrville friend hates Common Core. My Coventry friend hates Common Core. So they actually snuck a test out to me. These tests are not allowed to be seen by parents. So they snuck a test out to me, and do you know what the 3rd and 4th graders were asked to take a test on? Positive video gaming. The author of this test says that some people think video games are harmful to young minds, and that video games cause violence, and that video games distract kids from their schoolwork. The author is actually promoting video games. And after the child reads through the paragraph, as I said, this is basic 3rd or 4th grade testing, online. They can't use pencil and paper. They have to go back and forth on the computer. So their eyes are on the screen all day. The answer to question number 13 is what people are saying about video games is false. That means the author of this test is promoting video games for 3rd and 4th grade students. The author of this selection is trying to persuade the reader that what? Are video games expensive? No. Are video games a waste of time? No. Are video games harmful to a child's brain? No. Are video games healthy for 3rd and 4th graders? Yes! Video games are healthy for 3rd and 4th graders. This is the kind of test that was given in the Burrville schools and the Coventry schools, so it must have been given here. Deplorable. I'm glad my son does not take part. Thank you.
Yeah. Allison, you can take that because it's illegal. We don't want it.
It's illegal?
Yes.
Parents have to make an appointment to see that type of curriculum.
Okay, take it back.
So what are you hiding?
We don't want to take it back.
I'm going to keep it there. Positive video games. Excuse me, how much time is Riley allowed on video games per day? Not much. My son is it.
Members of the committee, I hope you give me more than just 2 minutes to speak to you because I have a lot of positive things to say. First of all, I want to thank the superintendent for his involvement in the state.
Can we just grab your name?
Nancy Latender. I'm a parent, elementary school parent, and I'm an attorney. And I've had 18 years of experience as a municipal attorney working with towns such as West Greenwich. I'm also a certified planner, so I do strategic planning for communities throughout the state. I want to thank you for getting involved at the state level. That is the place where changes are made. I've also been involved with the General Assembly. and a number of causes for municipalities. I would like to ask that policy 7600 please be made available. I would love to carry a copy out with me today if I could get it. Otherwise, if you could please post it somewhere conspicuous on the school district's website, I would appreciate that because I would like to take a look at it. I was taking notes, but I missed quite a bit. I understand state mandates. I understand how the federal government hands down money to the state and to the community and how the system works. I'm very involved with that kind of setup in the planning community. I do appreciate the fact that the core curriculum is a methodology of teaching skills to students where it leaves the actual content and up to the individual teacher. I do appreciate the fact that testing is inevitable in a society where we need to measure each other, one against each other in terms of continuing to up our game and building our local capacity, building the capacity of school departments as well as municipal government and state government. We're trying to create a workforce for the future, in a future that we don't know what they're going to be doing. My children are 6 and 8 years old, and I doubt that the job that they are going to have when they get out of college is even known to us yet. Things are going very quickly. I think it's a great idea for you to reach out and to explain the importance of the testing in the 95% participation rate and what that means not only to the school but to the classroom and to the classroom teacher. But I would also suggest that you educate and get to the bottom of why parents are opting out. I have all due respect for Allison. She went to high school together. She's a great parent. She always stays in the know on things, and she's the reason why I'm here today. But I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Allison when it comes to testing. I think the higher the participation rate, the better experience all students in the school are going to have. And they're going to approach the test as if, oh, it's just another test. Not, oh my God, it's the park test, and everybody's complaining about it. Why should I care how well I do? Because I understand that you're testing the school's ability to teach the skills that our children are going to need by the time they graduate, and probably even sooner. I've spoken to superintendents around the state who have said junior and senior year could be obsolete by the time our students, my son and daughter, get there, because they're taking college credit courses already. And I graduated in the 1980s, and I graduated high school with 9 college credits, and that meant a lot to me. So I'm going to encourage my children to do the same thing. But I think, with all due respect, Madam Chair, you're missing the point, okay? These moms and dads, these teachers should not have to go to the state with their cause. There should be a lot more open discussion. I'm well versed in the open meetings law, and I come here today with kind of that hat on. I basically defended communities against open meetings violations for close to 18 years, so I'm very well versed on it. And I think you could do a lot more to be open with parents and with members of the community. To be perfectly frank, your forms of communication stinks. It does. It could be much better. And I know that if that is improved, you're going to have the participation you're looking for. Get the message into the hands of the people who make the difference. The parents. Talk to the parents. Persuade them. Don't send them upstate to the General Assembly. Because I know very well, as you know very well, when you get up there, you're just a number. You're just a member of the school district from Exeter West Greenwich. You are not their constituents. We are your constituents. I appreciate all the hard work that you put in on the school committee, in the school administration. It is very important. I trust you with my children's education, but come on, be real. Reach out, be part of the community, reach out to the community, embrace the concerns. Tell Allison why the situation is the situation.
Yeah, and that is one of the pages. So,
okay.
We already know that we didn't do the education piece that we should do because we didn't think we were going to have a problem with the superintendent said. So our time was a little bit off. It was a learning year for us. That we are going to be doing the education piece this year and early on doing the education piece. My comment to taking it at a higher level had to do with the parents who feel very strongly, and I believe Allison does, as many parents do, who are against Common Core, they're against the part testing. And I respect those opinions. That's the battle I want them to go up higher with. So our education piece absolutely needs to happen, and that is going to help our participation rate, because a lot of parents opted out because they weren't educated, they didn't know what they're making, why they were making that decision.
I believe that an effective administration will provide the teachers with the information that they need, will get the students to integrate this Common Core standards into their curriculum, allows them to be innovative and fun and relate their testing to the children, and then that's going to take the pressure off the PARCC test.
We're on the same page.
That's where
I think that there's a little bit of thank you very much.
I just had a quick question. If you are going to put a lot of focused energy on communicating the importance of the 95% rate, is there a need to have a policy set in place? Because if you do have the effective communication, why will there have to be a policy forward?
I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think from a legal perspective, if in fact there are questions by either the state or the federal government as to how you are complying with the ESEA, having a policy in place, that's how a school committee functions or speaks through policies. So essentially, my legal opinion would be, yes, I think it's wrong that you should have a policy in place.
So leading back.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the spot that you're all in being on the school committee. And I guess if I were on the school committee, I would definitely want a policy too, to protect yourselves.
Could you speak your name for us?
Kate Franklin. But I just would caution that I think the parents that opted out their children, and I was one of them, are perhaps not as uninformed as you may realize. That in many cases it was often an agonizing decision to do it. And I think that you will still have parents that will opt out despite the consequences to them, to the school district, because they really have fundamental concerns about, I've taken both the math and the ELA online. I consider myself pretty well researched. I did not undertake decision to withdraw my daughter lightly at all. And I just think that, and I agree with you, we need to work on a higher level, but if you have enough people within your community that have concerns about this, it would be nice if we could work together, the parents and the school committee. So I'm hoping that this policy is we're protecting ourselves legally and not, and not a shame on you parents type of thing, because I think we do all care about the kids. And I think we could all be pretty much on the same page. I agree with you, schools completely have to do what the department says. You don't have a lot of choices over the type of testing, but for parents that opted their children out, they're happy that you don't have the data, because they felt that that data would have been flawed, even if the children had given it 100%. Because the test is inherently flawed. So I know you don't want to open it up to a bigger discussion, but for individual parents that are educated, you can't separate the two. There's no real problems.
Thank you.
entire packet was copied for you. This is a student from Warsaw, Poland, who is looking to register here at our high school. We've had students through this organization, Cultural State International, in the past. It's an accredited program, and they go through all of the required steps as part of their outline our policy. So this is a case we have
Can I just have one question? Is on the host family EWG?
The host family was.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the exchange student. Second.
Because I kind of dumped through the whole packet and not knowing if, like, if it was applying for one, it seemed like it was applying for one. So, just curious, I'd actually like to make a motion that we strike from taking out the packet.
Number one, under FERPA, which would cover it, you have a legitimate educational interest in that information based on the fact that you have to vote on the recommendation from the superintendent. With that said, if it's the will of the committee not to receive the level of information in the future, you can certainly turn to the superintendent. That you only need, A, B, and C. As opposed to the alphabet.
I think the information is pertinent though in here. I think it is. It talks about her scholastic abilities, her personal interests. It was medical stuff. It's not everything, but as a student in school, you get that in the immunizations and stuff.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unfinished business. The capital projects, I guess the status of tennis courts. We're moving along.
Tennis courts done. We have meetings scheduled tomorrow for the construction project. We are starting at all of them. We're going to go across the district. So that's on the construction and safety. And then immediately following that, we had the tennis court. And speaking with Josh, but I'll make much more clarity on tomorrow. I think they're just staging for the top. So they're looking backward.
What's the topic?
It's going to be the tunis, which is for Thomas, asphalt. That's the I want to say acrylic, but it's not. But it's a
top.
Yeah, kind of what we call it, impervious to water. And they align it, they're going to go out and so they, so just frame of reference, the tennis camp who usually is running the camp at this time, based earlier at the beginning of the project, there's been a second week all installation plan on running the camp. Tomorrow, that's what I'm going to get confirmation from Mary as a lawyer. That is construction, particularly on
The tennis team wanted to have capital practices the 1st of August. So when do you, I guess, when are we looking for?
I'll get an update tomorrow after we talk. I mean, it looks like it's ready for them to start with finishes. And then I think it gets down to, I can't envision it, the fences probably, I think those in place.
Can you communicate with Mr. Boucher?
Yes. Yeah, I got Tim and Jerry. And those are going to, those are now scheduled every Thursday. So the security, it's pretty amazing. When you go into each building, you can see that they isolated the areas where the work is taking place. There's two elements. There's the construction, so that's the glass and the door fronts. The storefront is the term we're using. That's changing. That work is going along. It's on schedule. There's nothing major. It's just kind of, this is where we are, so that kind of update is happening. What's amazing is the security of it. They've already run the conduit, the wire, they're starting to hang cameras, and so that's going to go pretty quickly. And what is not seen is the back end of it, which is the controllers and the servers that will drive all that equipment and monitor all that equipment. And that's going along right now. And I can just say that, Irving, school committee, they're excellent. Their communication is great. They're adamant that the line of communication stay open. So many little, anything that can be seen as a constraint, we want to eliminate as quickly as possible. And we've done it. And that will be Thursday meetings also. So those are what we're calling contractors meetings, and then there's the option after each school committee meeting to do one. But the timing of this is a little off tonight, and then we'll meet tomorrow. So I'll just figure it out after.
Are all the servers going to be the same?
They're going to go, they'll pass through an update in the local and then down to the data center. So that's where the main backup and there'll be some improvements on down to the data center, but also in the local cloud space. And it's all, again, the scalability because as soon as we light those babies up, we're going to know where we need more cameras. So, and that's what we're gearing, that's kind of the build of this project is, there's a budget, let's adhere to the budget, let's get the most bang for the budget, but let's make it scalable so that when funds become available, needs become available, or the community becomes available, we can add on, and that's really the build that we're very positive.
Reports and comments? Reports and comments? Important dates, so we have a school committee meeting on August 18th, September 8th, and September 22nd.
I'm not available on the 18th of August.
Okay. Do you want to look at a date, or do you want to have it over here for that vote? I don't know. Is that important to you that you're here for the whole
I would like to be. We changed this date tonight for November, so I don't know, unless we can't change it.
We don't have to be here.
Tuesday mornings. That was a good consideration.
It was the 11th. It's the Tuesday before.
We actually a lot of money for dissemination information.
Last time.
More in terms of if it's adopted.
Oh,
Policies and traditions to replace with school students.
Margaret, Diane, Cheryl,
On the 11th, you said?
Yes.
Okay, How does it, how are you on Wednesdays? Yeah, good. I apologize, but how about Wednesday the 12th, the following day? That's bad. Was bad. 12's good, fine, 12's good? 12's good? Okay. All right, so the only thing I do is check is late. So let's put it on our calendar for the 12th, but I am going to check this late. I'll just check the calendar for this is ready. Gave it a long name. All right.
Can I make a motion to go into executive session under meeting 42, 46, 5, investigating negotiations session. And C, 42, 46, 5, personnel.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions?